Hey everyone, I wanted to mention that I've added a lot more to the UI tutorial GitHub repo. For anybody that hasn't seen it yet, I basically made a UI Toolkit tutorials GitHub repo that's public. Any of my tutorial videos on UI Toolkit features like the visual element reference panel render and stuff, I'm actually adding to a GitHub repo. A couple days ago, it only had like one scene. Well, I just added over 100 new scripts for examples. For anybody wondering what I added an entire dialogue system. No joke. So the UI tutorials GitHub repo now has a dialogue graph system and a lot more. Do note, I'm still editing and adding more stuff to it, but I figured I'd show off what I have. So I can actually go here. I can actually go to SF. You'll notice there's a dialogue. I'm going to create a dialogue graph real quick. And I'm going to say test. And then I'm going to hit it. Notice whenever I hit test conversation, it creates a thing called test, and it has SFGR. SFGR is a custom file extension for graphs, for my demo graphs. And basically, when you create a actual dialog graph, there is a scriptable object that is actually used to keep track of serialized data for like different branches that can happen inside the dialog graph. And this is actually for runtime, and then this one is for actual inside editor. So if I actually double click this one, oh, look at this, we now have a dialogue. And I can actually do, like I could say, start dialogue here. Do note, I do need to clean some of this up. Some of this was made in 6.4. I need to actually update it to 6.5 because you actually don't need to like manually set the dialogue database or create a start dialogue node manually. With some of the new API, I just haven't implemented it, but that'll be added to the tutorial or like the demo soon. But you can add a conversation context node. So I'm going to just actually do context node real quick and do that. I can say this is intro 1, so you can actually give each different conversation a different name. I can literally go in here. I can just add actual dialogue stuff. I can even have like animation nodes and stuff like that. I'll have an actual example of how to actually do animations and stuff from like mid-conversation. Do note, the reason why I say a tutorial, since this is actually an editor tool and you can't really do like a scene to editor. So if I actually go over here, I'm going to add this like a game object, and you'll see I have animator. Okay. Yeah, you can't drag it in there. If you actually click it, yeah, you can't drag it. So there's actually a way to set that though. You can actually set stuff from like runtime into this, and I'll demonstrate that in another tutorial. But just want to show we have that. You can play sound effects. I also have what is known as conversation extension node example. Basically, this one allows you to give what is called node caller ID. And node caller ID actually allows you to connect to actual like game object components and stuff. So for example, I have a conversation Unity event extension. If you notice, there's a node caller ID right here too. I can actually grab that and boom. So whenever the dialogue actually reaches this part, it will actually play this. Do note, these technically actually need to be on the same object that's actually calling the conversation. So you do need like the actual like a conversation trigger thing on there as well. I probably am going to actually be renaming that, or what script is. I'll have demos of that, but just want to show off it is something you can do. So you can actually like call Unity events and stuff from actual game objects. You can even have it do like whenever like a node starts, complete it, because you can make these run asynchronously. So you could have like the animator trigger while a conversation, like a mid message and stuff like that. But anyways, I still got more that I need to set up. Like I'm going to actually be making the scene and demo graphs now, but code is mostly there. I just need to update some of it to a newer API because some of the API that I wrote manually was added, like just built into 6.5, or there was some that was actually made it where I no longer have to do something. So I am going to be cleaning up the code. But for now, if you guys want to see like some of the stuff, there's actually a branch called SF package cleanup. That's what I'm currently working on. You can see work there. So I do got to clean up some of the scripts and actually update it. But yeah, so got a conversation graphs that I'm going to be working on. You guys can already see the current work in progress. Still need a little bit more. there's also a lot more other stuff that's been added to it. Oh yeah, I did add the database system. So for anybody wondering, I actually have like a database registry. It can be dialog, it can be enemy database and stuff like that. Database registry, literally whatever you assign a database to the list, it will actually add it to a setting inside of your project settings. So I actually can go inside here. So if I go to project settings, and it should be under player. At the very bottom, you'll notice that there's a thing that says preloaded assets, and you'll notice I have my database registry here. So basically what happens is the database registry can actually load scriptable objects before the very first frame of the very first scene. And you can also have it load like after the game objects in the first scene is loaded, but before a wake is called on any of them. So you can actually use the first frame of whenever a player like clicks and starts your game to actually load your databases, which is useful if you have like a room database or something like enemy room item or save database that you need to actually make sure is fully up and running before the first frame, prevent like a null errors or any like logic issues. So I also have an example of that. And by the way, we talked about like the Unity 6.5 lifecycle management API. This is actually done with that. So I mentioned before there's an on-code initializing. That's actually how I'm doing this. So basically, for anybody curious how it works, on-code initializing, let's say here, like I can actually show this off. I am going to go here. I'm actually going to remove the database registry real quick. I'm going to save. I'm going to actually just force a code reload, and we can demonstrate this. So you saw I removed it from the player and project settings. Whenever I hit save, though, it'll automatically be added. So basically, I'm using on-code initializing to actually guarantee that a registry has been set. That way, you don't run into any assets. I do also have examples of how to like create a folder. That is one part I do need to implement. So like if you don't have a registry created inside of your actual like project already, I'm going to make it where it automatically creates one. That way you literally can never have a null error. And just note, you can go to SF, data, and then database registry to actually create one. The reason why I made it where you can have different ones, if you're doing like a prototype, or like alpha builds, or you want to like change something inside your database, you can have like a alpha 1 database, alpha 2 database, or like a boss tweak that has like different data inside your databases, and you can actually let players compare like the builds. So you can actually have multiple database registries and force a build with different ones. That way players can actually see, like give you feedback, be like, okay, maybe like the changes in this one works better, stuff like that. So it's very useful. But yeah, for the rest of the video, I'm going to kind of just give a quick rundown of what's already there inside of the demo. Do note there's a lot. Like, I'm not kidding. I added over 100 files within the last few days. We got a dialog graph base class. Basically, it's the base class for any dialog graph in my examples. And then I actually have a dialog graph that actually inherits from it. And this dialog graph, you can see the asset extension. If I actually go back to the dialog data, you'll notice that down here, test.sfgr. So that's actually where the SFGR comes from. Dialog node processor, and I will be making a manual, and I'll actually be going into depth a lot more about these. And I'll also add like summaries for anybody that hasn't seen a lot of summaries. This is actually summary. If anybody that has never used the summary before, if I actually hover over this method, you'll notice that below the pop-up, it has the remarks. That's what a summary is. So you can actually have it where when people like hover over a variable or something, and it'll actually like show, like for example, you'll see node processor helper class editor runtime graph nodes use. I need there's a grammar error there, but don't worry about it. I will add more summaries. Basically, node processor actually takes in a dialog graph and it actually processes them. And the process is Unity's nodes at the current moment are editor only. This node processor converts editor only code to runtime code. So yeah, Do you know, some of it is, I had to do some manual code at the moment, but I'm working on making it where like Roslyn compiler will just use the source generator to automatically convert editor nodes to runtime nodes. But you'll notice I have inode, that's editor, and then I runtime node is actually nodes that work in build. Because like I said, Unity's built-in node class is editor only. So dialog node processor basically takes editor only and converts it into something that can be used during runtime. And you can even see like all the process there, like a process nodes conversion and stuff like that. And yeah, you also notice that if anybody's curious, I have an iContext node converter, like or like a inode converter. So basically, if you implement this interface, it actually explains it like that's how you actually tell how a node is converted from editor to runtime. Just heads up. So you'll see there is a lot of stuff here. With the new API, I can actually clean it up. Like I said, some of this was written when 6.4 was actually in beta because I've been working on my dialog graph for a while. And you can also see like a lot of database registry stuff. If anybody's wanting to create a new dialog or new database, I have a class called SF Database, and there's also a class called SF Data Asset Database. SF Database is more for script, like just generic scriptable objects. SF Asset Database, you can actually pass in a type of DTO asset base, and DTO asset base is something I created. It basically allows you to create any type of data object, and the DTO asset base can be just injected into almost anywhere. So like, for example, the dialog conversation, if we actually go into it, it's a DTO asset base. And yeah, and if I actually go to like the dialog database, you'll notice that it is just a SF asset database that takes in a dialog conversation. And it's useful because it'll automatically set up like your data entry stuff, your remove data, get data by ID, and other stuff like that. So it's kind of useful. Also, do note there is a SF database for what is called DTO base. There is a DTO asset base, which is scriptable objects. But if you actually go to the DTO base, it's not a scriptable object. It is actually just a C# class. So the database system I set up supports scriptable objects or pure C# classes. Just heads up, it can do either one. And as you see here, example of the animator node. You can see how I have examples of how you can tell it to work with certain types of context nodes. So like conversation context nodes, when we say use with context here, if you notice inside the graph, if I right click here and just say animator, you see that there's animator constant, but there's not an actual node. So I have, if we actually take this out, there is a conversation context node. And then when I add a block here, then the animator node appears. So basically you can actually tell nodes to work only with certain types of graphs or certain types of context nodes. And you'll notice I am using constants. That way, like I'm not recreating string memory allocations. I can actually improve this now. There's some new stuff inside 6.6 that actually works. I will be making example ways to do custom UI element nodes. By that, I mean, Unity actually allows you to actually create your own custom UI element that acts as a node, so you can actually do your own labels, your own header and button, stuff like that. But I'm just kind of going through wanting to show off like some examples. I will clean a lot of this up and improve it. There's a lot here. Conversation index node, if anybody sees it and curious what it is, basically, you can have it where like if you talk to the same person multiple times, it increments an index for the conversation and they say something different. So like you could talk to them 3 different times and they'll say something different each time, stuff like that. And you can even choose like what order. Dialog entry is basically the actual like information. This is actually passed into the dialog manager, and that's actually what tells the panel renderer what to actually put inside the actual like in-game menus and stuff. So yeah, but anyways, there's a lot here. I'm trying to think. I want to go over the most important ones. Oh yeah, dialog asset post processor. This is the most important class for the dialog demo. Basically, what it is, asset post processor. whenever you actually create an asset, so like an actual graph here, Unity will actually register this graph asset to its post-processor stuff. And depending on like what classes and stuff, or like what things you actually see, whenever you inspect them, you'll actually see like a post-processor over on the right side. Like Unity will actually say post-processor. I have noticed that it doesn't actually say it whenever you're looking at like the graph things, but I think that's because like the custom extension. But if you have like a sprite or something, you might actually see that it says like on sprite post processor, stuff like that. But basically the asset post processor, whenever you actually save a graph and stuff like that, that's when this actually runs, and it checks to make sure the graph is valid, so there's not any like errors or anything. And yes, there's a built-in error system. If you actually notice here, there's alerts right here, and you can actually go back and forth. So yes, there's a built-in error system. That's not me, that was actually Unity, but I hooked up into it to actually add double checks. And you can see here, it literally loads the graph. It links the conversation. So this is actually what links this scriptable object that can be used in runtime with the actual editor only graph. So that's actually what this set of code is. And you can see like a few different things. This is one of the next things I was actually going to be going towards. And you can even see that this is actually what creates the this file here. So if you see like whenever I like actually create actual like if I say dialog and I say dialog graph, you'll notice that it's actually creating the scriptable object, but when I hit save here, it then adds to creates the graph. That's actually what this line of code is for, if anybody's kind of curious. So yeah, there is quite a bit here. I did embed some of my helper code and stuff. So you'll notice that there's actually like helper utilities. I can actually remove some of this because, like I said, you can see where it says like 6.4, and you can also see a few other things that is actually here. But yeah, there is a editor and runtime version. Also, let's see. You'll notice that there's also some asset database utilities, like find assets of type, find first asset of type. So this is actually finding it inside your actual project stuff. And you'll see like get logical folders and a few other things so that I'm going to be implementing. I don't need to handle utilities anymore. So there's some stuff I got to clean up. And you can even see like helper functions for actually like adding folders and stuff on the operating system if you need to create stuff. I was going to warn, if anybody sees this SF editor type utilities class, you're going to see a reference updater. If you don't know how to use, if you've never seen Unity's reference updater, avoid using this. I'm not kidding. If you don't know what Unity's reference updater is, it is safer for yourself to not try to use this. I did make a note here that says important notes for normal users. The reference updater, just for anybody curious about it, Unity has this thing called a type catch. So like if I actually like go here, I'm gonna actually type say type catch. You'll actually see like type catch here. So the type catch actually uses what is actually like a reference updater there. Basically what the reference updater does is whenever like you change a class name, you add a new scripting file or something like that, it actually catches that class and put into Unity's type catching for editor code. You can actually use the reference updater. So whenever a new like C# file or new like that has like a struct class or anything, you can actually have it like say, hey, if the reference updater has been changed or has had a reference for the GUID of the actual like class has been changed, run the reference updater, and you can actually do checks. So like if you delete, like for example, if I delete like a C# file that has a node, so like if I delete the actual C# file that creates like for example, if I actually delete this one, the SF, like the reference updater inside my own custom SF editor tools will run Unity's reference updater, and it'll actually check all graphs that has the actual SF block node and give you an error and warn you about them if you delete it. So it goes way more into that. Like it actually goes into what is called unpin. If you haven't seen unpin or stuff like that, just don't worry about it. Yeah, if no one's seen stuff like this, long story short, I don't want to go on more ramble, but basically it literally messes with RAM and marshalling. Like it actually goes into like unpinning memory, like actual like memory objects using like spans and stuff. So if you don't know, if you haven't used Unity's reference updater before, just ignore this. Just a warning. Even if you're curious about it, look it up first before you choose to try to use it. But yeah, there's also, I need to update some of these because some of these were before Unity's like big push for like adding a lot more like custom like events, because I can actually turn these into UI events now. Like Unity actually has like a thing called like, I think it's like event dispatcher. I know it's event dispatcher gate and also event callback that you can actually use, and you can actually create your own custom UI Toolkit events. 6.6 has a lot more support for them. 6.5 had it introduced, but do know like 6.6 has the most of it. I think the like easiest way for you to ever see like what all it's used, if you do like a register callback, I just say like, let's say on or detach panel event, I can say like on panel, I'm gonna just say on, and then there's gonna be like a callback options. Yeah, callback options, and you can do stuff like that. If you want to see like how to create like event stuff, look into the callback options thing, and like see how you could do like event registering to the event gate for UI Toolkit. There's also some object picker extension stuff. I haven't implemented this inside the graph yet, but the goal of this is to actually link, like this is, I'm going to make it where you can actually do link, like you can actually like drag animator components and put them into a graph. I'm going to be actually using some of this and getting there. Okay, this video is kind of getting a little long. I just wanted to say there's a crap ton of stuff now. And I am working on adding more, and I do need to clean up some of this stuff. But yeah, so hope you enjoy. There is, trying to think, there's one other thing I was going to say. If you don't know how to do, if you haven't used it yet, Void. Oh yeah, the .NET, it should be under C# utilities. Nope, it should be. Actually, I might have just removed it. No, I put it under marshalling, yeah. Also, just heads up, I literally backported some .NET 10 features. Well, actually, I think this one right here is was actually introduced in .NET 8. But if you guys haven't done custom marshalling stuff, also don't worry about like looking at this. This is actually like backporting custom features that was actually added in like .NET 8 and bringing it back to older versions of Unity. If anybody is curious, like what the hell this does, if you know, there's sometimes you need to convert a list to array to, or sorry, a list to a span. This is actually how you could do it. Because fun fact, the version .NET Unity currently has before their .NET update, you cannot convert lists to spans by normal. There are ways to do it, but you can actually just, I just backported the ask span feature, and actually allows you to convert a list into a span, stuff like that. But anyways, okay, I think that's good. Again, I'll put the, for anybody that doesn't know the link to the GitHub repo, I'll put the GitHub repo into the description. If you want to see the most updated version, SF package cleanup is it. That's where I'm cleaning up like a lot of the files and updating the API with 6.5 and 6.6 new versions. But yeah, hope you guys enjoy. Have a good day.